Jonathonzuzga with ZUMA Concepts. Hey, today I'm bringing you a video on, this is more of like a fishing, boating video. I do a lot of trolling, and I recently bought a boat that had a troll master installed, and it started to fail on me. And what a troll master does is it gives you minute control over your throttle on either your kicker or your main motor. Some of the newer boats have this right integrated into the boat. But once I dug into it to fix my own problem, I figured out you can actually build one of these for your own boat if you're a do-it-yourselfer for, on the very light side, maybe 40 bucks. But I'm gonna go through how I would build this. I'm going to build one and install it just to show you viewers how you could do this at home. And my whole setup here is about 110 bucks, but I had to buy everything, the different components, the wires, the ends for the servos, things of that nature. And what I found with my Troll Master is that my servo went bad. And when I started to look up new servos, I started to find out that there's a big market for RC, whether it's your RC cars or RC airplanes. And they have what's called a servo tester, which is only, this one I think was $11. And it has a digital readout, and I'm going to show you how to wire this up to a servo and then wire that servo to your outboard or inboard, anywhere where you have a throttle control, and you'll be able to minutely adjust this using a servo motor just like Troll Master does, but for a lot less money. If you're going to get into buying a Troll Master, they're anywhere from $250 to $350. This is just an option for you. It's a way to have that minute speed, so you don't have to sit there and bump your throttle like all of us have, and then it bumps too far and you got to bump it back. This takes that control rate out of it and allows you to set your troll speed to get those tenths of a mile when you're trying to hit that 1.6, 1.9 speed, or you're trying to hit the 2.2 speed, depending on what you're running or trolling. So anyway, I'm going to jump into this video. I'm going to go through it step by step and explain to you how it works, so that regardless of the application you're going to use it, you should be able to adapt that to what you're putting it on and understand how to do that. So I'm going to jump in. Here we go. All right, so there's a couple of ways that you can do this. The first way that you can do this is simply getting a battery pack that'll essentially go into this box with the controller, and then the controller is ran off the battery pack, and it converts and sends the signal to the servo and tells the servo what to do. Here's the servo that we're going to wire up. I'm going to go through all the steps of how to wire this up, and then where to install this on your engine, and then how to make that work. In order to install this on the engine, you're going to need a piece of thin stainless steel or aluminum plate. I recommend stainless steel just to make sure it doesn't get too bounced around, but aluminum would be a little easier to work with. I'm going to use this to cut out the bracket that you need to use to mount the servo inside your engine. And I'm also going to use this as a backer plate on the inside of this box, where I am going to mount all of my hardware. And then I'm going to use these waterproof wire connectors to go through so that this stays waterproof. These testers that you buy are not waterproof, so I'm actually going to mount this down inside of the box, and you'll be able to see the display, but ideally what will happen is that this way, if you're netting fish and you splash water, it's just going to get on the box. It won't get in and ruin your electronics. You'll be able to flip this open and then make your adjustments, whether you're going with the current or against the current accordingly. So I'm going to go through how I'm going to measure this, how I'm mounting it inside of here. And then the alternate option is, if you're not going to use a battery pack, you use this converter that's going to take 12 volt and reduce it to 6 volt, which is what the operating voltage is for this servo. And then I'll show you how to wire that up, which is the setup I'm going to use for my boat. I'm going to make both just so you can see how to do it. But for my boat, I'm going to have it so that this wire comes out and I can plug this into a cigarette lighter, and then it's going to run into the inverter, which is going to transfer that to 6 volts. The 6 volts are then going to go into the controller, and then from the controller, they're going to travel through servo control wire to your servo inside the engine, where you're going to have that adjustment. And the way this works is it's going to be mounted behind your throttle body, and it pulls on the throttle body with a piece of stainless cable. I actually had this malfunction on me out in the lake, and I used a piece of braid and it works fine. It's just a matter of having something that's reliable, and it needs to be flexible, because what will happen is you're pulling that throttle back and forth with your cable using your servo drive. And then if you want to take over and run it with your throttle over at your helm, it'll still allow it to do that, and it's just going to let that cable flex. So then you restore this back to 0, and then no matter what, you'll always have control with your throttle at your home. So again, I'm going to go through this step by step how we're going to do that, and hopefully this will help you save some money, guys. So I ordered these connectors. I had to get smaller than what this box came with. The box came with a set that was too large for this. This is 22 gauge, 3-strand wire. And initially I'm going to put one hole in the box to mount one of these, and that'll work for the battery pack setup. And then afterwards I'm going to put a second hole so that I can run my 12-volt power in with this, and I won't need to use batteries for the setup that I would personally build myself. Now, I'm using this little control box. You could easily run this wiring all the way up to your dash and mount it at your helm so that you have control of it that way. But again, this is going to give you a really good idea of how to set this up, and how you want to mount it in your boat is really up to you and doesn't really matter to Amazon. And then I went to the store, the hardware store, and I bought these bolts with these aluminum spacers, and this is a 4M thread metric that threads into the bottom of this electric box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this in as far as it'll go. Then I'm going to measure this gap, and then I'm going to subtract the thickness of the plate from that measurement, and then I'm going to cut that much off the bolt, and that's going to give me a precise layout to give me enough gap there, so when I tighten this screw down, it's going to tighten this plate down and hold it in place. And the reason I'm putting this plate in is to lift the controller up away from the components that I'm going to mount inside this box. This voltage reducer, and in other cases I'll show you with the battery, so you can mount the battery pack inside of there too. And this is just to keep it up out of the base of that. You could do this any way you want. You could mount it right into the bottom. I'm just doing this to keep it up off the bottom and allow the other stuff to be there. I'm also going to use 3M double stick tape to fasten this in, and then to fasten the controller to my stainless plate. And any other components that I don't want to move in here, I'm just going to be using that 3M double stick tape. So the idea is try and make this as waterproof as possible, knowing that you can't make it completely indestructible or impenetrable by water, but you can do your best so that it's at least splash proof and you're not going to damage your electronics. So I'll keep working here. I'm going to grip this, but I'm going to grip it on the side that I'm cutting off so that I don't damage threads that I need. Knowing that this is going into here, you could also grip it there and know that you're not going to hurt any of the threads that you need. I'll mark this up, cut this, and we'll see how it looks. Maybe I'll use this instead of the stainless plate on the inside of here, just so that I don't have to deal with cutting this till I'm ready to install the servo. So because I switched to this blue one, it's a little thicker and my measurements were off. So I'm just gonna take a little bit off of each one of these aluminum ones so I can get a little bit more of that thread to grab in the box. But this plate's gonna work just fine. I don't need much, so I'm just gonna hold it with my channel locks and I'm gonna buzz right along the side of that channel locks to make sure that I get it nice and even and that I don't take too much. I'm gonna do that on both of them. Now I'm getting a little better thread exposure. I'll go back to installing this part. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to take and mount this on that. It's going to hold it forward so then I can put the battery pack behind it or the inverter behind it. And then any extra cable's going to get wound up kind of behind there. And then I'm going to come out either side of this. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to take this plate back off so we can work down here. As a little trick to keep these on here, I'm tipping them in on an angle, but to keep them on there, you can put some like dielectric grease in here and the grease will be sticky enough against some threads that'll hold them in place while you're lowering that in. So the way this is going to go is it would just set here and it's going to wiggle around. You could probably get sticky back Velcro and you can Velcro this into place so you can remove the top, pop this out, and then replace your batteries in here, and then this will run the entire controller. You don't need to do any extra power. So you're going to get a series of these connectors like this.
These are the male, and these are the female.
This is the end going to the controller, so these are going to be female because you're hooking to those male probes. So after you Strip your wires down. And you carefully take these and you lay them in, and there's a large probe or barb in the back that goes over the insulation, and then there's a smaller one just in front of that that goes to over the wire. So you set the insulation in. While holding it in place, you just use your fingernail and get it started down on top of that insulation, and then take your pliers and crimp down, and that bites into that insulation and keeps it from moving. Then you're going to come in at a little bit of an angle, work those other two barbs down over top of the wire and give that a light crimp. And you're going to repeat this on all three of those. The other way you can do this is you can buy ends that are already crimped and then just wire crimp them together and then heat shrink. I'm going to substitute brown for black, red for red, orange for yellow. So I make sure that when I make this on the other end that I do the same colors. That way this cable is the same end for end. Then, knowing that red has to be in the middle, you're going to want to make this identical. So we're going to put black on the inside, red in the middle, and yellow on the outside. So transferring this over directly, you need yellow on the outside, red in the middle, here's your first end. Now we need to make this end so it can attach to your servo. I'm just using a 12-foot lead. You can make this about any length you want. You just got to watch voltage drop over long distances. This end you're going to go through the same process. You're just going to use the male so that you can attach to this female. Now you're going to use the ones that look a little bit like this. Now when you crimp these, you want to make sure that you crimp these so that they'll fit inside of this back end. If you get them too flat or wide, they're going to want to not slide back into that plastic, and you need all that aluminum completely covered. So I kind of crimped around in a circle nice and lightly to make sure that they would fit right in there. And you're going to match what you did on this side. So I'm going to take this, and it's the same as the female.
And this jacket goes over top of it to prevent the probes from being bent.
So I'm going to plug this in, black on the outside, yellow on the opposing side, and red in the middle. So we're going to start with black. See, that's not wanting to go in, and it's because of what I was telling you about this not being round. I'm going to smoosh that in a little bit better. There it is. Then it'll feed right in nice and easy and click. So we got black on the outside, red in the middle, and the yellow on the outside. I'm going to get all three of these, or these last two going, so that I'm not trying to stretch the cables. You'll hear them click. So now we got that set. The colors are matched. Now we're going to take
the male end protector.
And one side is more open than the other. That's the side that's going to go on here. So this is the side you're going to squeeze over that. There'll be a real audible click when you get that one where it belongs. It'll only fit together one way because there's beveled edges on either side of this controller, and that's why it's important that you make them all go the same direction. So see now, yellow is to orange, red's to red, and brown is to black. We followed that mapping so that this would fit. That fits in like that. This is going to go to the controller. Like that. And lastly, we need to hook up power. We'll go through those steps. We're going to use these same servo connectors because we have to plug in to this bank, but we're going to just use a 3-prong. We're only going to occupy 2 of the prongs. And you'll be able to put this in and flip it if it needs to be the other way. If I go to my Amazon account and look at the diagram that comes with the controller, you'll see that we're going to occupy those 2 because that's going to be our positive and our negative. We don't have a control wire coming from the battery, so we're just going to, these are all the different servos you can run off this one controller. So starting with the battery one, we're going to make a female connector. Same way we did the last ones. So we need red to be in the middle because ground was on the bottom. That way, whichever way we flip it, red will always be in the middle. When you're putting these in, it's with this facing up, it's wire crimp side up. So we're going to feed this one in. Here's ground, your positive, there's your negative. And this is ready to mount to the controller with this 6-volt battery supply. Now I'm going to show you how to wire this, which I'm going to use on my 12-volt inversion. So while I have this completely free, I'm going to put these on. Repeat the process that we just did for that battery pack. The coating on this inverter seems to be a little bit heavier than the other coatings, and since I'm not sure if that's going to fit, I'm going to crimp directly to the wire. So in this case, yellow is going to be red, so that needs to be in the middle. And black again is ground, that's going to be on the bottom. Okay, now we're going to splice in the 12-volt power to the inverter. And we're going to do that with some simple wire crimps. How you'd always do this, black to black, red to red. Since these are heat shrink, we're going to shrink them down. Like the diagram showed, negative positives, we're going to hook this like that. And then ground negative, positive, then are your electrical, and then your control. We're going to go into your outside. Now, this is ready to plug into 12 volt. You get your feed and then you'll be able to control your servo. The other option for power is to pull this out, and you can operate using only this 6-volt battery supply. And that, once powered up, is going to give you micro motion control over this servo. Then we're going to install the arm, this underneath your engine housing, and we are going to tether it to your throttle body with a piece of cable.
Now that the controller's built, I'm at the boat, and I'm building a leader to fix my Trollmaster. And I want to show you this because it's going to be the same no matter what you do. Now on this Trollmaster, you'll notice the arm's going to be different than what you get in the kit. And that's okay. This needs to have more flexibility for adjustment to setup, because on a Trollmaster it actually works with a pre-programmed servo, essentially a PLC, and it's going to a home position every single time. So this cable needs to be tuned to that home position. The one that I showed you guys how to build doesn't have to be like that. You can position it anywhere you need to pick up a little bit of slack, and you're going to identify a set point. So once you know what your set point is, you'll know when that's when the servo's starting to take over control on your throttle. And I'll explain this a little bit better in the end, but you'll get the idea here. So I'm tightening down this cable. I pulled it tight. This is the 0 position on my Trollmaster, and I'm going to show you how this stuff works. And it's the same. What I did was I built a dumber version of the Trollmaster so that you can hardwire a setup like this on any outboard, inboard, anything that has this type of access to your throttle body. My big 115 horse Merc does not have this ability because the throttle body setup is different than this one. I can't necessarily run it this way. As you can see here, that's the mounting plate that comes with a Trollmaster, but on this Mercury is very simple to accomplish. Now, looking at the wiring, you just wire it around here so it's clear of all moving parts, and then you run it down through, and there's an opening on the front of the engine there where you can feed that controller cable out. I'm going to hook this box up in this controller that I showed you how to build so that you can see how it works. So I'm disconnecting my 12-volt supply here, and I'm going to hook up this small 4-pack battery 6-volt power supply, and this is all you really need to run this. You don't have to have 12-volt. I did it because my boat has a 12-volt plug, but if you're running a boat that doesn't have a battery in it, you can still build this setup and hook it up this way. So now I'm disconnecting my Trollmaster, and I'm hooking up the setup that I just showed you how to build. So it's going to be controlling the servo the same way it would for you. So if you can see here, there's some slack in that cable, and I can adjust it out with this controller. And that's why I was saying it doesn't really matter with your setup whether there's a fine tune for that cable or not. And then you can see you just take your readings and you can adjust that throttle ever so slightly, and you can take bigger motions with it as well. You have to look real close, but you can see that is repositioning the throttle, and that's giving you your small, like, tenths of a mile per hour. Now I'm going to jump inside the boat here, and I'm going to operate this with my 12-volt inverted setup, where I just take this and I plug it into my 12-volt outlet here. Once I have that done, now I have control over that servo using my 12-volt supply that's inverted on the back of that display. And if you look here on the side of the screen, you can see there's your throttle control.
now just to go over this again quickly so you have a good understanding of it. I've removed my 12-volt setup and I've just installed the 6-volt battery pack setup. Like I said, it would just mount behind there. There's a little on-off switch here. You flick that on. Now we have power to the servo. And from there, you're going to be using this arm that comes with the servo. And this you can pop off and position anywhere you need to get the right angle to run this. But say you're mounting this on, say an outboard and it's a tiller setup and it's a 25 horse pull start, this setup would be perfect for that, because this is all you need right here to operate, is this setup right here. You can control this servo arm using this 6-volt battery pack, and that's all there is to it. And you can, the real fine minor adjustments there. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to mount this in your engine housing in a position where you can get to your throttle body, and then you're going to make a steel leader that fastens to that throttle body, and then you're going to use this controller to run that, like I showed in the video when I was setting it up with my TrollMaster. You'll notice the arm looks a little different, but I wanted to explain to you quick how you could do this. And anyway, that's the sum of the whole thing. So hopefully, like the information you got here, hopefully this is helpful to you and helps you save a little bit of money. Like I said, doing this with a group of buddies is probably going to be beneficial. I said I put about $110 into all the parts that I bought. I had a lot of extra cable. I got a lot of extra steel cable. The only thing you'd really need to buy is maybe more of these housings. If this is what you use, you don't even need to use this housing. Quite honestly, you could take that battery pack and this controller and put it in a Ziploc bag and save a couple more bucks. But an $11 controller and a $14 servo, little bit of cable, you can throw these things together for pretty cheap. And if you're working with some buddies, it'll drive that cost down. So like I said, hopefully you liked the video I made for you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Be safe out there, guys. Have a good one.